Welcome. Today we are going to migrate a WSFC cluster using RDMs over to vVols. Before doing the migration, let's review the disk configurations of each node. As we go in and look at the disks, we'll notice that the shared disks are indeed RDMs, and we want to take note of the SCSI controllers that they are using. This is very important because you need to make sure that you match them exactly when you reconfigure them using vVols. Now let's take a look at the second node in the cluster. We'll see that the SCSI IDs for the RDMs are the same. Something else we want to notice here is that the controller channels are also the same for the SCSI controller being used. Again, looking at the second shared disk, we can see that the IDs match, and so do the SCSI channels. Now let's review the cluster and the functionality itself. We can see that we've got the cluster running. We have the functionality of a file server. We have both nodes that are functioning, and we can also see the disks that are shared between the two nodes. We go over and verify that the file share itself is functional. And we can also take a look at the disks and seeing that this node is active on the quorum. We go over to node 2 and the active share for the file servers is on node 2. Now we'll shut down the cluster and make sure both nodes are powered off in order to do the migration. When doing a migration from an RDM to a vVols data store, you must have all nodes powered off. Because of the shared disks, there's unfortunately no way to do a live migration. Once you've shut down all the nodes in the cluster, we then go to all secondary nodes, and you must remove all of the shared disks. Something to note here is that we are not deleting from data store, we are just removing them from the secondary nodes. Once all the secondary nodes have been removed, we can then do a storage vMotion of the primary node. Initiate and migrate, and we're going to do storage only, and then we can choose our destination vVols data store. Notice we didn't have to change the disk format type. When migrating to vVols, the format type is automatically changed to thin provisioned. Once the migration is complete, you can go into the VM configuration and see that now the shared disks are indeed on the vVols data store and are no longer RDMs. Here we can see the first disk, and also that the SCSI controllers match where they were previously. After verifying the shared disks, you can then do a storage vMotion for all remaining secondary nodes. Make sure to choose the same vVols data store where you migrated the primary node. Now that the migration has been complete, we go into all secondary nodes and we have to add back in the shared disks. So we'll go in and we're going to add an existing disk, and we will navigate to the vVols data store where we migrated the primary node. We'll find that node, and then you will select the disks in the same order at which they were connected previously. Notice here that again, we are being very careful to select the correct SCSI controller to match the way it was configured before the migration. Make sure that you do this process for all secondary nodes in your cluster. If you do not, you will not get all nodes to come back online when you start powering your cluster back up. Once all the disks have been reattached to all secondary nodes, you can then power on your cluster, starting with your primary node first. Then once your nodes are powered up, we can go in and verify your cluster functionality. So we'll go into the primary node and we'll take a look at the failover cluster, and we'll see that it is up and fully functional. The role is functioning as the file server. We can verify the nodes and see that the nodes have come back online. And then we can take a look at the storage and see that the disks are also back online. You can also go into disk management and see that all shared disks are online. At this point, we can also do a test and actually fail over the file server functionality to the other node. Once the failover is complete, we can see that that disk is now active on the secondary node. Now we can go into the secondary node and verify functionality as well. Now you can log into the second node and check all functionality. Here we'll see that the disks are indeed being shared between the two nodes in the WSFC cluster. Returning to the primary node, we can see that the file share functionality is also back up. As you can see in this demo, migrating off RDMs to vVols is a very simple process. For more information on vVols, go to storagehub.vmware.com.